right, in the interest of making sure that everyone is ready for their test and considering that the Friday session had to be moved to Thursday and people have track practice and things like that, I wanted to do a quick little review that you can listen to online. So, Industrial Revolution test review. Here we go. Industrialization is going to deal with your factories, inventions. You have the expansion of slavery. You have immigrants moving in because now there are more job opportunities. You start some reform movements, which we'll talk about in one of our coming units, because the Industrial Revolution does bring up some ugly things in society. And you have the expansion of canals, railroads, all of these things. Please be mindful again that industrialization is going to lead to urbanization. So you're shifting from rural life to city life. So large groups of people are going to be living in small areas. That's going to lead to some overcrowding, crime, fires, diseases, a lot of immigration, pollution, things of that sort. Those types of issues come up when you have a more urban society than a rural society, which is what the United States had been. All right, with the Industrial Revolution, you do have some improvements in your transportation systems, and because of these improvements, you're able to move goods faster and people faster as well. You're opening up new markets to your goods. You're making jobs and lives easier, and a lot of those transportation systems are going to deal with your railroads, the steamboat, canal systems, better roads instead of your dirt roads, things like that. Okay, you begin with wagon transportation, and your wagons are going to be clutch and trying to move to the west. You're able to cheaply get all of your things onto a wagon. People didn't really hoard like they do now. Okay, you kept things to a minimum. And unfortunately, it was very bumpy. It's an uncomfortable ride, and if it was raining, a lot of those roads become impassable because of the dirt. In your movements to faster and more efficient transportation, one of the things will be with the steamboat, and you're able to move goods upstream instead of having to always go downstream. So that's very beneficial. The steamboat, again, is invented by Robert Fulton, and this transition begins before the War of 1812. And your canal systems are going to connect different water systems for faster travel. They're very expensive to build, take a lot of time, very much time consuming. And your commerce or trade is going to benefit because this allows for faster transport of products. And the faster you can get things somewhere, the more you'll be able to sell them, etc. The Erie Canal is the main canal that we've discussed, and it's going to connect your Great Lakes to the Hudson River, and you're able to get goods from the west. Your farmers from the west are able to get things into New York City, which is one of your major ports, and things can be dispersed from there. The Erie Canal is going to primarily be built by Irish immigrants, which we'll talk about momentarily. Okay, your railroads are going to connect the east and the west. Remember that the majority of your railroad systems are going to be in the north and in the west. You do have a few lines that are in the south, but not very many. The railroads are going to also lead to faster travel of goods and people. You're going to have job opportunities in building the railroads. Of course, a negative with them is the pollution that'll be caused. Okay, pollution is one of your most negative effects of industrialization and your urbanization in the cities. It'll lead to a lot of health issues, which we'll discuss as we get to our reform movements unit. The economic system that develops in the United States is known as a free enterprise system. It's based on a laissez-faire economics, which is a leave it alone, hands-off type of approach. What you want with this system is for the government to stay out of businesses, have a very limited role, so people have the freedom to produce what they would like to produce, have the businesses that they want. Free enterprise is going to encourage entrepreneurship, and you are going to deal with the law of supply and demand. Remember that if you have a low supply but a high demand, your price is going to go up and you're able to make more money. We now have this economic system that matches our system of laws and the government, and it's going to be based on individual rights. So the government does have a limited role. Remember in free enterprise that they set some rules. They act as a referee if there's a dispute between different businesses and corporations, and they of course collect taxes. All right, your factory system, a big deal during industrialization. You have the mass production of goods by machine. It's faster, it's more efficient than making them by hand. It kills the cottage industry. So your blacksmiths, your cobblers, your candle makers, all this stuff is being done in one building by a lot of people and machines. And so those individuals are not able to compete with your factory items. Women in particular are going to begin working in textile factories in the Northeast. So they're going to leave the rural farms in which they had been on and then move again to the Northeast in particular to textile mills. With movement, you do have movement from other countries. Your immigrants are going to move to the cities for job opportunities. The cities are ideal because there were many other immigrants who were living, and so they're kind of meeting up with some of their family, and they've heard some news about someone having a better life in America than they had back where they were coming from. Often immigrants are going to be hired in your factories because they're willing to work for less because they are all about trying to improve the life in which they left from their home country. Your two main groups of immigrants during this particular time period are going to be the Irish and Germans. The Irish are escaping the potato famine, which is starving many people in that nation, and they are primarily going to come and work in factories and again work on the Erie Canal, things of that sort. And then your Germans are going to settle primarily in the western region of the United States, what we would call Midwest today. All right, Adam Smith was your father of modern economics. He's the one who comes up with the laissez-faire system. I should have put that slide in a different spot, but hey, you can do. Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin and interchangeable parts. With the cotton gin, it is your fast way to separate the seed from the cotton. It cleans it a whole lot more efficiently. You increase the production of cotton in the South because of it, and is also responsible for the expansion of slavery and the need for more field workers in the South. And slavery begins to try to creep its way westward as well. Your plantation system is able to thrive in the South because of many geographic factors, the same factors that we talked about when we were in the colonial unit, in the South having the long growing season and things of that nature. Obviously, the invention of the cotton gin is just discussed, and they are still using triangular trade in the South. So they're getting their manufactured goods primarily from Europe, and then they are trading their cotton to those factories in Europe for finished production. Okay, we already talked about the expansion of slavery due to the cotton gin, so again, remember that. With interchangeable parts, your parts are being produced in order to be identical so that you can just replace the part instead of having to replace the entire product. This system is going to be applied to a lot of industries during the Industrial Revolution. So it begins with guns, but will eventually lead on to different aspects in industry. The steam engine is going to be responsible for your growth of industry. This is before the War of 1812. And what the steam engine is going to allow you to do is use steam power for the boats, for locomotives, for factory machines. It increases your demand for factory labor, and it's going to allow you to move your factories away from the water sources. The Bessemer steel process is going to have a faster and cheaper way to mass produce steel, and that's going to help with what you need it for your railroad lines, for building factories, etc. The telegraph is going to connect coast to coast eventually, but right now we're dealing with the north, south, and your Midwest region of the U.S. It is invented by Samuel Morse and gives them what at that time is instant communication. Not what you have now, but that was high tech back then. The impact of your inventions overall is that you need fewer skilled workers, your cost of manufactured goods are going to decrease, and the production and efficiency are going to increase. All right, the War of 1812 is going to be caused by British support of natives. Remember, they don't really leave after the Revolution. They're still kind of hanging around in the Great Lakes area. And they're supporting natives and attacking the U.S. and the impressment in interfering with U.S. shipping. One of your great impacts is that it's going to cause the onset of industrialization in the U.S. because of the blockade that the British put on the United States. And it shows that we have to become more independent from foreign imports. So your impact, one of which I did not put here, is an increase in nationalism, and then ultimately that the United States becomes more self-sufficient because we realize we just got to rely on ourselves in order to supply what we need within our nation. The Missouri Compromise happens during this period. Remember, Missouri was a territory. It has met the requirements and applied for statehood, but it would upset the balance of free and slave states in the Senate. So what you do is have Missouri come in as a slave state, and then Maine, which had previously been part of Massachusetts. Remember how we had to do that little map? And Maine is going to come in as a free state. The second part of this compromise is that the 3630 parallel is going to determine where territories can be slave and where they can be free. So from the Louisiana Purchase territory, anything north of this 3630 line has to come in as a free state. So these territories are completely closed to slavery. Anything south can be a slave state. All right, the two court cases from this unit to remember are McCulloch versus Maryland, and Congress can make a bank and Maryland cannot tax it. So it reemphasizes the supremacy of your federal government over your state governments. And Gibbons versus Ogden, where the federal government is going to regulate interstate commerce or interstate trade. Both of these cases, again, define the powers of the federal government. Right, the Monroe Doctrine has three main parts. With the Monroe Doctrine, we're saying that the U.S. is not going to interfere with affairs over in Europe. Like we're not going to deal with any of that, or with any European colonies that already exist in America. When I say that, we're talking North and South America. Okay, second part is that we declare that the Western Hemisphere, North and South America, are closed to future colonization by foreign powers. And that ultimately the United States, third, would consider an attempt by Europe to colonize or interfere within the Western Hemisphere as a hostile or warring act. And we are going to be the big brother, okay? So we're the big brother to all of these newer and smaller nations in the Americas. Okay, if you have any questions, you can always email me. And that's pretty much it. So, best of luck. You can go through this as many times as you need to, and make sure that you also look at your other review materials that are on Edmodo for you.